He does national radio, national TV. Sometimes I do a double take still. I'm like, whoa, there's Joe Fotenbaugh just standing next to Stephen A. And he's trying to educate Stephen A on how he needs to be looking at these games to take some swings at over the weekend. It's phenomenal. Joe O. Sammy P. You've got Bet Sweats on the BetMGM network at Joe Fortenbaugh on X. Joe, longtime Philly guy. Now, that was a long time ago. I mean, since we've known each other, you've lived.
When does this? Whoa! When does this?
Yeah,
when does this introduction stop? Like, I got a joke, I got a comment, and like the introduction is continuing, and like there's no opportunity to slide in here. You got to let the joke get in. How many mistakes did ESPN have to make for me to get there? There's the joke.
No, we're past that. We're past that. We're way past that, Joe. Come on now.
It's the Super Bowl. No. We got to get right to business.
Hey, that was the conversation we were just having. I said, give me a number on how many prop bets are we going to get from Joe Fortenbaugh, and I think Sam gave a bad number. It was like 11.5 or something like that. I'm like, no, there's going to be an answer where he goes 5.
How many? Like, how many do you want to get to? Like, that's the thing is there's so many offshoots, right? Like, you end up talking about one player or one schematic matchup in this game, and you can get 3 or 4 props from there. So, first off, I should have said this as well without running my mouth. It's always great to see you two. Like, I don't get to run into you two enough. With Joe O, you and I go way back. Sam, you and I have known each other for a while here now, too. So this is awesome to be able to talk to you guys about this. But, yeah, I'd say 11.5 is a bad number. We can get over that if we put a little bit of effort in, we'll get over that.
We all have a bunch of bets. You do, I do, Joe O does. Do you have one that you're uber excited about going into the weekend?
Yeah, I'll give you 2 of them go together, and then one of them is another one I stumbled into recently. So I tweeted this out yesterday. The prices were at ESPN Bet. Depending on where you look, I'm not sure where it is right now. Trent McDuffie, the Kansas City cornerback, to record the first sack in the game was 50-1. To record any sack in the game was 30-1. All right, those are monster long shots. I mean, why not, right? He's a corner. He's got 4.5 sacks in his regular season career, which comprises 43 games. So why would we be interested in this? 2 of those 4.5 sacks came against Philly in the regular season matchup last year. I'm doing radio down here with Harry Douglas, who went back. This all comes from him. Like, not the bet, but he was breaking down for me how he went back and watched that regular season game, which I think was like a Monday or a Thursday nighter. It was a primetime game. And he was watching Spagnuolo and how often he was trying to blitz Hurts, because we all know Hurts against pressure versus Hurts with no pressure, totally different quarterback. So Spags was trying to get pressure after him, and he was doing it in creative ways. And he must have sent McDuffie 6 times on the blitz, and McDuffie got home twice. So matchup dependent, right? So 50-1 for the first sack, 30-1 for any sack in the game. Of course, I make those bets. They're immediately limited on the website, right? I'm here in Louisiana. They don't even know me here. Immediately limited. And then the prices were cut in half. So it's like 30-1 for the first sack, and now 16-1 for an anytime sack, which I'd still sprinkle a little bit on that. The other one I'd throw your way, Jalen Hurts to be the leading rusher of the first quarter. It's plus 850, 9-1. Like, you guys know this as well as anybody, right? The larger the sample, the more opportunity for the cream to rise to the top. 60-minute game, yeah, Saquon Barkley should lead everybody in rushing. But a 15-minute window opens up some wide variance and some opportunity for chaos. Kansas City's going to struggle to run the ball in this game, in my opinion, against Philly's front, which leads us to the Philadelphia side. Everyone looking at Barkley, Hurts is going to tuck and run. And if you have a limited possession or two in the first quarter of this game, and he scrambles for maybe 22 yards while Spags' defense is keying Barkley, we can get home here. So plus 850, 9-1 on Hurts to lead all rushers in the first quarter, something I like as well.
Let's spin it to Kelsey. Not that you have a bet on him. I don't know if you do or don't, but it's been fascinating, Joe, to follow his numbers, right? So coming into the Houston game, it's like 50.5, 51.5, and you're like, that's not right. Then he gets 117 in that game, and they price him at 71.5. And you know that's not right. You know that's too high. I feel like this is the third porridge. They finally got it right at 60.5. But if they're going to use a lot of this short stuff that you're talking about, maybe it is an overlook on Kelsey. I haven't done anything with 87. Have you?
It's so so difficult because on one hand, here's Philadelphia. Fewest receiving yards allowed to opposing tight ends all season. They've defended the position well, fewer than 40 yards per game. But in the playoffs, that's changed. Zach Ertz had a big game against him. Tyler Higbee had a big game against him. Even Tucker Kraft from Green Bay had a reasonable game against them. So you got to ask yourself, like, what happened between the regular season and the playoffs? Is it the injury to Nakobe Dean? Like, what's hurting them in terms of tight ends having so much more success? On top of that, that's the proven way to attack the Philadelphia defense. Over the middle of the field, take advantage of the linebacking unit, 2 tight end sets, which is what leads me back to Noah Gray, but I can understand why people would want to play unders there. So with Kelce, it's like he's older, he's trending down. The defense had a good year against tight ends, but then the other side, it's like it's the Super Bowl, it's Travis Kelce, and it's not like Kansas City's coming into this game spending 2 weeks saying, hey, if we don't get him the ball, sorry, there's just not enough looks to go around. Like, they're going to try to get him the ball in this game. And when you watch the number go from 69.5 to 59.5, you wonder how much opportunity is there. So it's a long-winded way of saying I haven't done anything yet. It's really difficult, though. I feel like this is one of those, whichever side I bet, the other thing's coming through. If I go under, he's flying over. If I go over, he's flying under. Best thing for me is to stay the hell away from this one.
All right, let's get to some of these angles we have. Now with the Eagles side, everybody's talking about Saquon, A.J. Brown, Goddard, super popular. But nobody's talking about the second receiver on the Eagles. You like him. All right, explain.
Devontae Smith. This is my favorite play I've done all the individual matchups of all the key players. This is my favorite play. I'll give you the rationale. You guys can tell me if you're on board for this or not. Devontae Smith runs from the slot more than any Eagle, and it's not close. He averages 29 snaps per game from the slot. A.J. Brown, just 10. Running from the slot, he gets the best matchup on the field either way for either team. He faces off against slot cornerback Chamari Connor. Now, Connor allows an 85% catch rate on passes in his coverage. Joe and Sammy, I realize some people might not realize, like, 85%, that seems high. Is that bad? Is that good? That's the worst completion percentage of any cornerback in the league. And that's the matchup that Devontae Smith gets for this one. Out of the 32 NFL teams, the Chiefs allow the second highest percentage of receptions to slot receivers versus outside receivers. And here's your sealer. Devontae Smith's 3 lifetime games against Kansas City and Steve Spagnuolo. 9 targets, 7 catches, 100 yards. 8 targets, 6 catches, 99 yards. And 10 targets, 7 catches, 122 yards. The over is 4.5 receptions and 49.5 receiving yards. That's it. So not only do I love the over 4.5 receptions, the over 49.5 receiving yards, we can go alt on this. How about 6 receptions plus 166, 80 yards plus 290? And those numbers would all be less than what he's gotten in his 3 other matchups against the Chiefs. So if you're thinking about even going higher than that, well, that brings MVP into play. I mean, if you think Devontae Smith, like I do, has a crack at 110 yards and a touchdown or 2 at distance, his MVP is 6,500 plus 6,500, 65 to 1 for Devontae Smith with the single best matchup of any player on the field.
When I look at your next 2 props, that's sort of baked into what you're talking about because you have 2 receivers for KC that you're looking over, which would, I guess, imply that Kansas City's probably down in this game.
Yep, and passing throughout. So Marquise Brown is my favorite wide receiver matchup on the Chiefs side. And the guy I want to highlight, Marquise Brown, over 40.5 yards, over an 18.5 yard reception for a long reception. So over 40.5 and over 18.5. 4 straight games for Marquise Hollywood Brown in which he's since returning from that shoulder injury. And in those 4, he's had increasing snap counts in every game, all the way up to 43 snaps last game, making him Andy Reid's undisputed number 2 receiver. And he's also their undisputed downfield receiver. In these last 2 playoff games, his average distance of target for Hollywood Brown, 34 yards and 15 yards. And Hollywood runs almost entirely on the outside. He's not a slot guy. On one side of the field, he's going to match up with Quinyon Mitchell. That's a very tough matchup, and Mitchell does not give up many long passes. He's been very good that way. Other side of the field, the defense's left side of the field, Darius Slay. This is our matchup right here. Slay has allowed at least one catch of 22 or more yards in 4 of the last 5 games. And so he is the guy you can get. He's a gambler. You can get downfield on him. He was really fast years ago. I think he's, 35 years old? You can get things done on Darius Slay here. And Hollywood Brown is the sneaky guy to get there. I think this line is lower than it should be for a guy who is an important part of this Chiefs passing offense, and a guy I think they're going to be passing a lot in this game. So I like Brown 2 different ways.
But as far as what the quote smart money people are doing, what are they doing so far with the prop betting? Understanding, like we've talked to like guys like Rufus Peabody and Spanky over the last couple of weeks, and they've said, look, Super Bowl Sunday, there's bets I'm going to be making, and we're going to be going under. But what are they doing early on from what you've heard?
Well, and a great guest list, by the way, this week, having Rufus and Spanky and others on. And just generally speaking, I've talked to Rufus about this for several years now, and what the sharp people are rooting for, and this is going to not really surprise anybody, but they want the most boring game possible. And so do people like John Murray behind the counter at the Superbook. John Murray told me this last week. We just want a really boring game, because the more boring the game is, the more likely the sports books are going to do well. But that's something that Rufus stresses as well. He just doesn't want to see things happen. Now, that said, with last week, the Superbook had its annual rollout of prop bets. That's still a bit of a hullabaloo here in Las Vegas. It's fun to see. And there were, I talked to a couple of the sharp folks about it, including Rufus, who didn't really get involved last week, but I'm sure he has at some point. And he and his group are going to get down. I mean, I think last year he told me they had, $2 million plus, and every dollar of it, Joe, was on prop bets. That's where they hunt and peck and find their value in these games. Now, again, they generally like unders. I talked to Bill Krackenberger about what he was looking at, and one that he liked because he got a number he wasn't expecting was Barkley under 25.5 for his longest rush. He thought that number would be significantly lower, so he didn't think there would be an opportunity to bet it. He saw 25.5 and he fired. And in fact, he said, the under is a big bet for me. If they took more, I bet more. So I thought that one was interesting. A couple of others that were overs, which generally the sharp guys don't play on the Super Bowl. They're looking for, like I said, they're looking for things not to happen, Joe. But Randy McKay bet a couple of overs, seeing numbers that he liked. He said he'd seen a lot of 30s and 29.5s on Patrick Mahomes' total rushing yards. When he saw 28.5, he fired. So, and that number's gone up. I'm pretty sure it's over 30, 31 at most spots now. So, and he also liked over on the Chiefs' Nick Bolton for his total tackles, solo and assisted. He saw 7.5 and liked it and went ahead and bet the over on that. So, again, that was an interesting one. And then again, another over, and this is one that Casey Degnan told me about, risk manager here in Las Vegas, that the sharp guys were on, Joe, was the total number of Chiefs with a rushing attempt. Now, these are, you got to dig deep for these kind of things. This is not the kind of stuff that, the average Joe, and I definitely count myself among the average Joes, would go searching for. But the total was 4.5 at Superbook last week during their opener. The total was 4.5 over under Chiefs to have a rushing attempt. Over was plus 140 to open. Within an hour, it was over minus 130.